Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris Blair here, and I've got some really exciting news to share with you. The Listening Room is going on the road in just about 2 months. February 8th through the 13th, we're going to be heading out of Miami, going to the Bahamas on the Norwegian Gym cruise. We've got huge acts like Big and Rich, Gretchen Wilson, Craig Morgan, Jody Messina, and many more. We're also doing Listening Room Writers Rounds with writers like Kelly Archer, Phil Barton, Chris DiStefano, Liz Rose, Brett James, and me. I'll be playing a couple songs. It's going to be a lot of fun, and speaking of fun, there's going to be some really cool things to do on the boat as far as activities go, like belly flop contest, silent disco, trivia, line dancing, whiskey tastings. It's going to be an absolute blast. So come see the shows, get exclusive merch, and watch us do this podcast live. Just come hang out with us. Tickets and information you can find at bootsonthewatercruise.com. That's bootsonthewatercruise.com. Get your tickets today, and I hope to see you there. You're listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at SBT Songs, or check us out at chrisblair.com. Ward Guenther joins us this week on our 100th episode of this podcast. So first of all, thank you everybody for tuning in and supporting us through 100 episodes. This has been amazing. Ward was one of the very first friends that I met when I first got to town, and an absolute legend here in Nashville and the music community. He has built an incredible brand called Whiskey Jam. Most of you listening have probably heard of Whiskey Jam before, but we're going to talk about all of the success that he's had, some of the challenges that he's gone through on this episode. He's also an incredible DJ with Apple Music Country. We're going to touch on that and what he's gone through to build himself as the DJ for that, and just a lot of different things that are going on in the industry and what's coming up. So let's get to it. Here is my buddy, Ward Guenther. Welcome back, everybody. I am so pumped. This is the 100th episode. Woo! And when I started looking at, okay, what do we want to do that's like big and unique and different? Ward, you were the first guy that came to my mind.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Ward Guenther in the house today.
Big 100.
Founder of Whiskey Jam. One of the very first friends I ever met when I moved to town.
Man,
dude.
Isn't it funny how it goes by so fast?
It does, man. It's crazy. It's like over 20 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
still in it, though.
Thanks for being here.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.
We have been through some really high times, some low times, some fun times, a lot of good things together over the years. But let's wipe that all clear.
Okay.
I've just met you. I know nothing about you. You've got such a great story. I want to dive in and like not leave any details out. So pretend like I don't know a thing.
All right.
Let's start from the beginning. How did you get into music and figure out like, hey, I want to move to Nashville?
Gotcha. I grew up playing, piano. Had piano lessons, so I had like a musical base of knowledge. Played saxophone in junior high, but it wasn't until my junior year of high school I was working at a summer camp in North Carolina. We were setting up one of the cabins, getting ready for the kids, and there was a guitar just sitting on one of the bunks. And looking back, it's probably one of those kind of fortuitous moments in life. It was just an afternoon. Nobody was around. It was this warm summer day, and there's this guitar sitting on a bunk, like just inviting me. And I opened it up, and there was a little chord book in there, and I messed around with it for a second, and it was immediately one of those things, like a puzzle that you could kind of figure out.
Yeah. And
so it just started making noise, and I learned to play that summer, and was just, that was it for my whole senior year. High school on into college, I was focused on school, trying to stay, academic. But when I'd get done with my work, I would be in the basement of the dorm writing songs, learning how to play guitar, seeing what chords worked. And from about freshman year, it was just, how do you get to Nashville? It was so lucky that we grew up in Memphis, went to school in Knoxville. Nashville's right in the middle of the state where I grew up. I was like, it's too good to be true. So it was just kind of a countdown, for the next 3 years of college. How do you get to Nashville? What do you do when you get there? And I went home for a couple months after school, and my parents are like, yeah, you can move to Nashville as soon as you land a job. And I went over and I interviewed with like an ad agency, trying to use my degree. And just the couple of days that I was in town bumping around, like just dropping resumes off and stuff, I was like, I got to be here. I can see the Bluebird Cafe. I can feel the energy. And it was 2003. So nothing like what we see now. But even still, it was like, I got to be here, man. You know that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about, cause we moved here the same year. What's your take on how Nashville's changed so much since we've been in town?
I guess I have a mixed take on it.
Yeah.
Because we are benefiting from the growth, listening room, Whiskey Jam. The city as a whole is benefiting from the growth, but man, every day we get bigger and crazier. I feel older and longing for the days when you had just fewer options.
Yeah.
I think we're in a weird little place right now where everything's growing, and event-wise, venue-wise, just stuff to do, but the audience isn't keeping the same pace, and it'll continue. It's like a pool. We have increased the size of this pool in Nashville overnight in some places, and the water's slowly, as people realize, we can come here and they can handle us. It's catching up, but man, I do miss the days where we could drive down on Broadway, pull a U-turn, park on the street, hang out at the stage all night, and go home.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to park in the alley of Tootsie's before I'd go in and play. And you just
dude,
you can't even drive downtown now.
Oh man, I had a secret spot over by Printer's Alley, and you could pull in and reverse in. It was where somebody probably kept their trash cans, and that stuff does not exist at all anymore.
Yeah. So
I miss those the kind of the smaller downtown feel things, but I think overall I like the growth. It hasn't changed the personality of what we do, or what I do personally. There's some things have come to town that I don't think are super cool or add anything to the scene, but I just, let them do their thing. And more often than not, we don't have to worry about it that long. They find their way out.
Yeah. Love it. All right, let's dive into Whiskey Jam. You've done such a great job building that brand. Just such a great thing for music in general. But before we kind of get into that, explain for the listeners that may not know, probably most of them listening are going to know what Whiskey Jam is, but how do you explain what you do for those that haven't heard of it?
Easiest explanation is a writer's night for bands. When we started Whiskey Jam, it was because we wanted to have a more robust sound to play our original songs with. We were playing writers' rounds at the listening room. We were playing all over town, and everything was similar in the dynamic. And so we're like, man, let's just bring a band into this, and we can be a little bit wilder, and you can have a little bit more, variance in your artist. And it was just immediately caught on. So writers round for bands, nice little showcase, a sampler of all kind of different music.
Yeah. What would you say to you, what makes a great performance at Whiskey Jam?
It's all about energy to me at this point. That doesn't mean jumping up and down on stage and doing backflips. It's just it can be sad energy. It can be emotional energy, but connecting with the crowd, a passionate energy. It sounds kind of hippy dippy, but man, after you've seen thousands of performances, you're probably the same way. It's there's something special when somebody really is connecting with their message. I think authenticity, as overused as that word is incredibly important. You can tell when somebody actually means what they say, believes what they're writing, and you can't replace the connective property of that when you're trying to, reach an audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to just how the idea came about, let's dive into that story.
Okay.
You just mentioned like just playing around writers' rounds and you wanted to get away from that acoustic feel. But when you and Josh first started talking about like, okay, let's create this, like how long did the planning go? Like, how was it like getting to where you could have like, okay, we're going to do this. Here's the first one, and figuring out the artist for the first one, all of that.
It was pretty complex. I mean, and simple at the same time. Like we wanted to start a night where our friends could get together. And the initial idea was, get a bunch of drummers and a bunch of bass players and a bunch of guitar players and a bunch of singers and have the gear on stage that if you wanted to kind of piece together a band for the night, you could get Eddie and Keo and you name it. Like, hey, hop up here and follow along. Here's how the new song goes. That was kind of the initial idea. I still remember the list of, who writes songs, who plays drums. Back in the time when we started, it was like not that long of a list, which was pretty cool. But man, it was, it really was kind of a unique combination of events and stuff. I remember thinking about this morning, playing the listening room one time, and this is more of a fault on me than anything else, but it was me, Dustin Lynch, Matt Rogers, all in a line, and you know how good those guys are. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, I remember having my hands on my guitar, looking down the line, going, when are these guys gonna wrap it up so I can get back to wowing the room with my songs? And it's like, man, I remember thinking that, and then thinking, how awful is this? Like, you want your friends to quit singing so you can get the attention? And I feel like that was a turning point for me, where I was like, I don't want that feeling. And so we just kind of started trying to seek out ways to play music and have fun and not it be some competition or jealous of your friends or whatever, which led to one night getting together with Frankie Ballard and Keo and Eddie and playing a show at the Tin Roof. And we just did a bunch of covers, a bunch of originals for, draft beer, basically. Yeah. So truly for like the love of the game, and had so much fun that night. The next morning, sent out a tweet and was like, thanks everybody for coming for the first ever whiskey jam. And it's just because we drank a bunch. And Josh saw that tweet and hit me up and was like, dude, what is that? There's something in that name that's super cool. And so as we put all those elements together, like we're looking for something new, we want to be inspired, we want to have a place for our friends to be, it all just kind of melted together. And we had been hanging out at Winners so much, and they didn't have much going on during the week. We're like, can we throw basically a house party on Monday nights and invite our friends? And dude, it was immediately like something to do. Yeah. Which is crazy. I don't know if it could happen. If it would happen that way now. That's one of my big thoughts. Like the social scene was so small back then, and everybody was friends. Or if they weren't your friend, you knew them. Now it's like, man, there's so many people. You can't know everybody. So building that kind of small community feel is tougher.
Yeah, totally get that, man. It's so awesome to look back and just, see what you've grown, just starting like that. Mm-hmm. And, now, you celebrated 10 years at the Ryman. Yeah. And now you're down at Whiskey Row, and, just the growth is amazing. You've got to look back and just kind of pinch yourself sometimes of like, man, like this is what I've built.
It's wild, man. That 10th anniversary, it's funny, in the aftermath of that, we're about to have our 14th anniversary, and we'll talk in the office. I'm like, I don't know if we could do the 10th again. I don't know if we could pull that off, because it was 2021, the summer after the pandemic. Yeah. Everybody was wild for shows, and we didn't announce a lineup at the Ryman. And the Ryman was, I remember the phone calls we'd have with them. They're like, okay, so when are you guys going to tell us who's playing? We're like, we're not, it's a secret. We want you to enjoy the reveal too. And they were like, we don't really do that. We don't not know who's playing at the Ryman. And we're like, you just have to trust us. And we sold almost all the tickets the first day they went on sale, and they were like, "Sound the gun."
Yeah.
But yeah, moments like that. It is crazy to look back. That night specifically was such a blur. Like, I hope we get to do stuff like that again to kind of soak in more again. But I don't know, it's a constant thing, man. You have these cool moments and these cool milestones, and then 3 days later you got another show. And who knows at that show if you're going to have the next superstar artist that we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
I think that's probably that's my favorite thing about the whole deal. You know, we've had these cool moments and these big events and, you know, kind of achievements, but it's that constant, you know, you never know, the thrill of the hunt as it keeps on coming. You see it here on a weekly basis too. It's like, who's this new kid? And you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
It fuels the fire and keeps you. The only thing that's kept us here for this long, right?
Yeah. I mean, that is absolutely my favorite part of it, is just when we both of us, we hear so much music that you know, for me, I know it's like, it takes a lot for me to just stop and go, wait, what is that? You know, like sometimes you know, it's still good music, but I just find myself tuning it out because it's not unique. And those moments where I hear something or somebody and I'm like, who is this? Yeah.
I mean, I'd put you and I up against almost anybody in town as far as who's been at the most, hosted the most, heard the most.
Yeah.
That it is just second nature. You know, when something's special, I don't even have to think about it anymore. I'm like, that's it. You know?
Yep.
Kid played the other night, last on a rainy night, and I'm like, that's it. That's the moment that every 6 months or so, every 3 months maybe, will happen. It's so cool, man.
Yeah. All right. I want to go back a little bit because I want to talk about some of the challenges that you've had.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, you and I talked, it was probably March. I mean, it was probably right when the shutdown happened in 2020 and was dude, how are we going to navigate this? What are we going to do? And I mean, you so quickly pivoted and started, you know, getting through COVID, doing Risky Jam, which was brilliant. You know, I want to talk about that, and then just what other challenges have you had along the way?
Man, the first talking about the shutdown, that was so we were coming out of the tornado, and we were in this position. Oddly, as Whiskey Jam, we turned into kind of like a news source for help in the tornado aftermath. And so like we were reposting and directing people as far as like donations of water, where you can bring a chainsaw, you know, here's who's in need. And it was just, we were getting a lot of information sent to us so we could disperse it. It was really, really cool, man. Incredible to be a part of. And the community was just rolling together so much right then. So for it to go from that, in this kind of arm in arm recovery mode to now it's all shut down and nobody knows what's going on. We were like, okay, we're in this cool spot of leadership. We can decide to shut our stuff down. I think it will affect the community as a whole, and we can, you know, be leaders here too. So I think the leadership approach we took was be optimistic, make the most out of it. And so in the face of like not having live events, it's like, man, we got to get stream, you know, somehow. And Instagram Live was barely a thing at that point in time. So we kind of grew with it. And man, it was amazing because it just, at this time where you couldn't see anybody or touch anybody or, you know, be around other people, it gave you a little room to sit in, a digital room where you felt like you had people around you and, you know, making inside jokes in the comments and almost like you were at a bar on your phone. That was one of the coolest things we've ever done. When I go through my phone, like looking back for old pictures every now and then, there's this moment of a few months. I'm like, oh man, that was amazing. You know, the people we talked to during those shows were people we could never get on our actual event. You know, it's like you get NFL players and Brad Paisley and Ashley McBride and Parker McCollum, like these stars who are beyond the Whiskey Jam age, basically, coming on, and everybody had so much fun. It was, to this day, every few months, somebody will come in, they're like, hey man, we just want to say thanks for Risky Jam. That got us through a lot. Like, we're from New Jersey, and that was like our lifeline, which is awesome, man. A cool thing to look back on, and hope we never have to resume Risky Jam ever again.
Yeah, 100%.
Other challenges though, dude, it's one of the hottest cities in the world, one of the hottest industries, and no matter who you are, how established you are, somebody's, you are a target. If not necessarily a target, but definite competition. You're somebody that they want to, why do they get to have all the fun? Why does Whiskey Jam get to enjoy the audiences and these achievements when, we're not doing anything really revolutionary? So there's been a ton of competition, which is great. I love people doing, unique things. I'm always for any place that a musician or artist can play and spread their word. But it's just getting a little tougher every year, as more things pop up. And honestly, the older I get, the more disconnected from the scene I get. That's a huge challenge, trying to attract young artists to come play our hip new show that's been around for 1,000 shows. Yeah. When it started and nobody knew anything about it, and you have like this real secretive speakeasy, house party feel to it. Now it's like, you guys have been around, you're old, you have families, like you could be grandparents. Is it corporate? Is it cool anymore? So trying to, keeping the event young and fresh is a constant challenge, but we've done a good job, man. Like, every time a kid, tries to sneak in Whiskey Row with a fake ID, and it happens quite a bit. Like, it's funny because the bands,
we've had a couple people on this podcast who have snuck in the back door.
And man, it happened the other day. They were like, hey, so-and-so's down here. He said you were going to let him in. I was like, what? And I went down there. I was like, oh yeah. X his hands, let his ass in. Cause like, the day that 20-year-old kids don't want to sneak in a Whiskey Jam is the day we're done. You want it to be something that teenagers see from afar. Like, man, one day I'm going to get in that bar. One day I'm going to get to play that bar. So yeah, staying cool to the young generation is constant challenge, but I don't know. Again, I think you probably get it as well as I do. Like, put a little bit of the brand magic on it and then get out of the way. Like, let the music and the artist keep the ball rolling.
Yeah. That what you just said is exactly why Whiskey Jam is what it is, because like what you've built is it's not for Ward. It's not for the brand even, really. Like, it's for, you started this for the love of songwriters and music and what we get to do. And it's not around the bar business first, and then, whoever's on stage is a jukebox.
Right.
And I think that's what makes it so magical, is like the love and the care of the people that are walking onto that stage.
Mm-hmm. That was a big focus from the beginning, when it was Josh and Ward hosting Whiskey Jam. It was never like Ward and Josh's Whiskey Jam. It was this thing hosted by these guys, but that wasn't even a concern. Like, nobody was coming to see Josh and Ward. And it's funny that kind of the early days where we were putting ourselves on stage at the beginning of the night led to a tradition that we don't start until like 30 minutes after the showtime, because it was 8:00, and then Ward and Josh would play for a half hour, and then everybody would show up. Because after they saw us for the first couple weeks, they're like, well, we don't need to be there for Ward and Josh. Let's start at 8:30. And yeah, man, as soon as we kind of took ourselves out of the equation, it worked a lot better.
Yeah.
I think when we started it, Josh viewed Whiskey Jam as a vessel to get, and he would say this too, he was looking for a record deal, and he thought I was going to get a songwriting publishing deal out of it. And as soon as it kind of got off the ground, we were like, this is way bigger than you getting a record deal, dude. This is like, One Republic just played. The artists that were coming through that were popping in and doing this thing because it was super cool. Like, this is bigger than you getting a record deal, frankly. And I think that was interesting because 4 years into it, I took over full time from him, and I just kind of think gotten tired of the routine, and the fulfillment was different for both of us. And as soon as he got out, he was able to achieve these things that he wanted to.
Yep.
And when I got to, be behind the wheel just by myself, I was able to do a lot of things that we'd been kind of trying to for years as a team.
Yeah.
But hadn't quite done it.
Yeah. Let's just talk about some of the fun stuff that you've gotten to be a part of. Cause I mean, you get to see these guys that come in, they become friends, before they're big, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've had the opportunity to take the Whiskey Jam brand out on the road with Old Dominion and Luke Combs and do these tours and build these amazing brands with Red Bull and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So talk about like what are some of those moments that are like the coolest thing where you're just like, oh my gosh.
Oh man. It's funny. Some of these wild stories and, one of a kind memories will drift away, and somebody will come back and remind me every now and then, like, hey, you remember when this happened? We were headed to Memphis to do Whiskey Jam at the Tin Roof on Beale Street, and just this really eclectic group of songwriters and artists. We had Matt Warren, Abe Stoklasa, I think Sammy Arriaga, and Luke Combs, and Chris Gelbuta. This looking back, and Channing Wilson was driving the Sprinter. Looking back, you're like, what in the world was that? And it just at the moment, we're like, this is just the guys that do the thing right now. And man, that was a cool trip. On the way over there, Luke was in the back of the Sprinter and on the phone. He got off the phone. He goes, well, I think I got my first record deal. And we're all like, yeah, whatever, kid. Enjoy that one. It ended up being the deal with Lynn and Riser House that actually, I think that was the first real deal for him. But we got to Memphis, and we're used to, writers' rounds and people being there watching and discovering these artists, not knowing, that Chris Gelbuta writes fun songs and not knowing that Dave Stoklasa is a genius. And that was kind of magic. But when it came around to his turn, people were shouting his songs out. Like in Memphis, many, many miles away from his home base, that he was new to Nashville. So I was like, man, how do they know about his stuff here, being from North Carolina? And that was one of those moments that I realized, like, this is a big deal. But it's funny, man, because like that happened a couple months ago in Kentucky with Braxton Keith. And not as many people know about Braxton Keith right now as they will in a few years. Yeah. But it's, one of those things, like, you go through these experiences, you see unique things, and it's like right when that happened, I go, I hadn't seen that since Luke in Memphis. These people shouting out Braxton songs. They've come from, Louisville, Kentucky to see this guy from Texas and know his music. Golly, I could go on for days about just amazing moments. We were driving back from Chicago one time. We would go up there and do Whiskey Jam at Joe's on Weed Street early on, like 2012 and 13, I think. Take a bus up, bring a bunch of songwriters, be gone like 24 hours, leave in the middle of the night, get back in the middle of the night. Whirlwind party, like partying on the way up, have so much fun at Joe's. They're just the best venue in the world for that size, and, making artists think that they're the king of the world. We get up there, have the blast, have these fun little shows. And I remember driving back one time, Cole Swindell was coming with us as a writer. He was a songwriter writing songs for Luke Bryan and kind of FGL, that world. And we were passing the aux cable around. And he was like, oh, let me see. And he plugs in and plays This Is How We Roll that he had written. And we were like, dude, next trip, we're on your bus. Like, you could just tell in that moment, like, dude, this is he's up next.
Yeah.
But man, like at the moment with, all those 3 stories and the tons and tons of others, they're all just new, young, hungry artists. And I love that so much, getting to know, like you said, getting to know these artists when there's no ego around them. There's no expectation. There's no disenchantment. They just had that same draw that, pulled us in 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
They just have a much, a better shot than we did.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love about country music in this town specifically too, is that like, there's a handful of people that I've seen that, we would hang out all the time and, consider them a pretty close friend, and then they'd get to success and kind of disappear. And that's unfortunate. But the part that I love is that that's very rare. Most of the people in this town that we've gotten to see over the last 20 years kind of rise to that stardom level. They're just great, down to earth people.
Yeah.
And they don't change. It's just,
I don't envy anybody in those positions at all, because it's hard, man. You come up with people and you are equals, you are peers, and then you get thrust into this thing where, it almost gets to be uncomfortable. I think some of these people get more successful than they ever thought, and they make more money, frankly, than they intended to. And so it's like, it gets them in a weird spot where they are now an industry, and it's just, it changes your personality and the way you really, your relationships in a lot of cases, because it's just, I guess kind of awkward, I just wanted to write songs and play shows. I didn't know that I was going to be like, this big of a deal.
Yeah. No, I can't go to the grocery store without.
Yeah. Some people manage it real well. I'm better than others, I guess.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Sennheiser microphones. When we first started this podcast, we were using some older microphones, and Sennheiser came in and sponsored us and gave us some MK4s and 914s. And I'm telling you, it's made all of the difference in the world. We love these microphones. We use them at the listening room as well. And I just can't say enough great things about them. Go check out Sennheiser.com. If you are into music in any way, their microphones are hands down the best on the planet. Go check them out, Sennheiser.com. And thank you, Sennheiser, for the support and the sponsorship. We love y'all. Let's talk about the brand and sponsorships. Your merch game has always been just ahead of the game. You're always coming up with new designs and all of that. I can go pretty much literally anywhere. And when I'm on vacation or whatever, it's like I almost always see a Whiskey Jam hat.
That's awesome.
And it's pretty awesome, dude. Yeah. I'm like, that is amazing. I'll get to talking to people and like, hey, are you from Nashville? No. Where'd you get that hat? It's just people that came through town, and they're like, oh man, I was walking down in this Midtown area where everybody said that the locals go, and I went in and found this place, and it was just awesome. And it's pretty cool. So how what has that been like for you to grow the brand, and like the amount of time that you put into that, and then also touch on like how you've built sponsors, because I think a lot of the artists that listen to this, that's something that they're trying to do as well. How do they get that right sponsor to be able to help support a tour and all of that kind of thing? So
right.
What has that road been like for you?
We didn't ever purposely, I don't think, build the brand. That wasn't on that initial list I was talking about. The initial idea just was the thing.
Yeah.
And so the integrity of the brand really came through luck, I guess. Just doing something that was really intentionally created, really purpose driven. Although we didn't know, those weren't like thoughts of why we were doing it. It just was what it was, and that was what was happening. And in this world now, in the new world that Whiskey Jam exists in, brand wise and event wise, and honestly that Nashville exists in as a city and a culture, like that was never a thought, like being appealing to brands. And so that's the intangible thing that these bigger brands now are dying for. They don't want to find the best, upstart that has been specifically designed to attract a, big sponsor, big brand partner. They're looking for the pull yourself up by your bootstraps, 1 in a million kind of special spark. And I wish I could say that we intended on any of that, but it just was the way that it evolved. And I think humility has been a big part of that, because it keeps the brand so individual. It's not attached to, we're not like tooting our own horn too much. It's not attached to a person or a host or anything. It is this thing that is that benefits artists and the community overall. And so in a Nashville, cultural moment where everybody wants to be a part of this scene, we are just really woven into the fabric where it's like, this is just a part of Nashville. And so these brands want to come in and be attached to real things. So, if in the situation or in the case of an artist looking to get those kind of brand deals, it's something you just have to honestly not think about. And man, that's tough. Like, it's
kind of hard to do, but
don't think about the one thing that you want.
Yeah.
And it'll happen. Yeah. It's one of those, it's probably, not unlike, being an artist, the ones that just kind of have it and could sometimes not care less are the ones that get pursued, versus the ones who are just, been doing this since they were 3 years old and that's all they've ever wanted. And there's no chance in the world it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
A weird industry to work in like that.
Yeah. Last thing I want to touch on before we move on a little bit, but when you moved from Winters to Whiskey Row, let's talk about that transition.
Sure.
As much as you can, and just kind of how that was for you. I got to be at the last show at Winters and hug your neck and kind of say farewell to that and celebrate the much bigger things. And was there this feeling of like, man, we made it? Like all of a sudden you're on this, like you're on the main Broadway stage.
Oh man,
like it just.
Golly, I don't think, man. It was probably the exact opposite. We have loved Dierks Bentley, have loved Whiskey Row for many years. We never had any intention of going and joining the Broadway scene, the movement of things to downtown. Even as inspired as Whiskey Jam was by Broadway, for the record, we started on Monday nights because the stage had a big night on Mondays, Rock Night with Randy Nation and Brian Taylor. We were all down there, and all the artists and all the stars were down there. I remember watching Charles Kelly just like screaming along with the Rock Night band. It was the cool place to be, and we're like, dude, Mondays are like industry cool night. Let's, we could maybe pull some people from this crowd, and they're not going to miss anybody. So we started on Mondays because of how cool the stage was on Broadway, and with probably the dream of, I wish we could do something this cool here, but we got to do it in our neighborhood with our people. So starting in Midtown and just developing our identity there, it became a big part of what we are. It was that kind of underdog, scrappy nature. It was that, speakeasy. A friend of a friend told me about this thing that I came to, and it's world-class artists playing. The coolness of it, that kind of undercover factor in Midtown was and is irreplaceable. Crazy thing is now I don't think that it can happen anymore in Nashville. Maybe that's not true. There are places that it could probably, that magic could happen again, but it's not in Midtown. It's not in downtown. It's not, sadly, in these popular areas that have been commercialized. You can't have an artist bar and claim that you're, underground Nashville. It is truly like commercialized and totally justified and understood. Anyway, the magic that was in Midtown at that, the onset has changed. And I think the scene just changed overall after a dozen years at the same spot. We had some amazing moments at winners, at losers. We grew with them. At the beginning, winners wasn't much bigger than this stage.
Yeah.
And then it went on to have decks and mezzanines and upstairs, and it was incredible growth. I think it just kind of changed for them and on the ownership side, and they approached us, and we just kind of been riding off of a, hey, yeah, whatever you guys need, cool deal since the first time. It was like first show we got a bar tab, and then we kind of evolved through the years. And so when they were doing some restructuring, they said, hey, we got to get an official agreement in place. And the agreement was just, we started on really far ends of the spectrum where there was no meeting in the middle.
Yeah.
And I loved where we were, what we did, and what Midtown really is to Nashville. But when it came time, it's like, man, there's no moving forward here, and I don't want to move next door. I don't want to do the same show at Dogwood. We thought about, we really considered some of the places on Demunbury and Live Oak, Tin Roof, and everything seemed like parallel moves. And dude, some of those bars have closed in the year that we had considered moving there. That would have been the worst. So it was like, okay, love Dirks. We had been involved with the entertainment at Whiskey Row for years. 4th and Broadway is not going anywhere. Busiest foot traffic intersection in the state of Tennessee. It's like you're going to be busy throughout the ups and downs. Let's just try it. There's not much original music downtown. Maybe that's a new renewed mission. So all that to say, miss Midtown, never would have left. But am proud of what we're doing in downtown. I wish the culture down there was catching on a little bit more. We're like, okay, we're going to do something cool. We're going to do something original. You have Chiefs open up and have this whole floor, 2 floors dedicated to original music. You have events here and there popping up where people are singing their own songs. It's like, maybe we can be a part of this wave. But man, you get out of the show some nights, it's just like, they're all still just partying and, dipping now 32-ounce cups of cane sauce. Like, it's a different beast. So rolling with it, evolving. I don't know if downtown is our forever home, even a place like this where it's a little bit off the main, out of the belly.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. I don't know. After moving from where we had been for so long, it was tough, but it definitely opened up freedom. It's like, okay, we're not now synonymous with a location. We're not bound to a spot. Yeah. And you look through the history of the Grand Ole Opry, they moved like 6 times in the first 15 years. So it was a thing that you could transport the nucleus to a different reactor, basically. And I don't know, loving downtown this era is cool, and to just be exposed to different energy. And honestly, the challenge is fun. Like, what can we pull this off? Lots of thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well, you've crushed it, dude. I mean, I remember having conversations with you, and I think you said something like, man, I just hope people show up.
Yeah.
With the first one. And, it's just like, did they show up?
Yeah.
And just see it, just go like, okay, we just shifted to downtown where there's no parking, where there's all these challenges against you. And then the room be filled Monday after Monday after Monday. And
we get it, man. It's a lot to ask. I come in the same way every time. And a few weeks ago, I had to come in a back way. And I was like, I would go home if I was coming to Whiskey Jam and I encountered the traffic issue that I did coming the other way. That's like not the secret way around.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd go back home. Like, I don't want to mess with this tonight. So we realize it's a challenge. It's asking a lot of people to get out. And so that challenges us to be like, okay, you got to make people want to leave the house. You got to make these shows where you have an artist that are exciting and enticing to warrant that, okay, I'm going to park 3 blocks away and walk it. We've done everything we can, drink special wise, to make it like you're at your corner bar.
Yeah.
We have parking validation for the artist. So for our people, for our team, it's as easy, if not easier, than it was in the Midtown days. It is just kind of getting everybody on the same page as an audience. That's been tricky, but I mean, the way that Nashville is going these days, you can't go anywhere and not pay for parking. Yeah. I mean, y'all know that probably better than most over here.
It's tough, man. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Not only have you built this amazing brand with Whiskey Jam, you're also this amazing DJ on Apple Music Country. Let's talk about that a little bit.
My other life.
Yeah, your other life.
Yeah, that was crazy. That happened right when everything shut down in 2020. That's when everything started ramping up at Apple, and they had been kind of vetting some Nashville community members. I guess it wasn't on air talent. They weren't listen to the local radio station. Who's got the best voice? Who's got the most experience in broadcasting? They were looking for people who had a position, had a role in the Nashville scene.
Yeah.
And so they had kind of been looking at Whiskey Jam, had been at shows. And I didn't even realize it, which was probably hilarious because who knows what I was acting like on those nights where they just popped in. But yeah, they tapped me to host a radio show called Country Risers that is basically spotlighting these artists that we spotlight at Whiskey Jam every week and have been for years. So dealing with the up and coming artist community and putting that on display to the world, and also kind of utilizing the relationships that I had built naturally through the years hosting the show. And then I guess the biggest challenge and X factor for that whole deal was teaching me how to host a radio show on a daily basis. So it's been a amazing opportunity, platform, and challenge, really, just to kind of pick up a different skill at this late in life.
Yeah.
But dude, amazing opportunity. You couldn't have a better company that was able to achieve a goal. If you and I wanted to set out and start a radio station and make any sort of difference, there's just no chance.
Yeah.
And the resources that Apple has and the commitment that they can, really afford is almost something that only they can do.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Now, do you get to act almost as the producer?
I have technical producers and content producers that help put the shows together. I provide, it's a great deal of creative freedom as far as what songs I play on the show every day.
Okay.
There's no real limits to, they've never said you can't play Harper O'Neill, you can't play, you name it. It's the freedom there is incredible. We have an amazing staff of curators, really. Just the ears behind Apple are amazing. It's the best in the business, no question at all. And so that acts as it's kind of crosses over territory between playlisting and program director. We have a program director position at Apple, and that person picks the songs in the majority of the shows and the programming through the day. And that's based on just experience and research, et cetera, of what people want to hear. But you kind of sprinkle in the magic from the playlist geniuses who are, curating these dozens of country music playlists with the data that Apple gets from just raw listeners, streaming. And it makes this really, really cool beast because you have an anti-traditional radio station overall with some traditional, values and I guess fundamentals baked in, but with a lot of the new magic of, what's streaming. Like our country riser this month is Sam Barber, who has not had a sniff at radio terrestrially, but is selling out massive venues every single show, like busting at the seams. People are streaming it like crazy. Like, okay, maybe people like this guy enough you can play him on the radio next to Kenny Chesney and Jason Aldean. Like, you can do that. And I might sound like a total idiot because I don't know terrestrial radio, as well as I do this Apple world. But it just seems like a move towards the future, and adapting to the way that people are consuming music instead of just continuing to expect them to eat what you feed.
Yeah. So I love that you have a say in all of that stuff. So like looking at country risers, like what goes into it for you when you're trying to figure out like, okay, this is going to be this month's person?
Oh, right. Man, we have such a crazy, unique perspective. It's almost, it's almost, what's the word I'm looking for? It almost doesn't help that we are so new and so attuned to what's cool and what's coming, because man, we've had some risers years before, it was time. And we're like, okay, this kid's got the sauce. We've seen him at the listening room. We've seen him at Whiskey Jam. We know that magic moment. And the majority of people are way, way behind on that schedule that we keep. I think about when my relatives come for holidays or something, like, hey man, who should we listen to? I'm like, oh my gosh, Ty Myers is incredible, or Preston Cooper, like these names, you've never heard of these guys. Yeah. And they're like, I'll tell you, I just heard about Riley Green. I'm like, okay, we're on different planets. And so like, it's funny because we are being tapped, or I was tapped at Apple for that early knowledge, and we try to utilize it, but it's like sometime you got to throw a jelly roll in there, be like, introducing this guy that we've been friends with for a decade, it's kind of figuring out that balance. But I mean, it's worked in well so far. Like, I think Apple trusts my input. I don't make any final calls. I mean, I can tell you the names of the people that I'm like, I can want to do it all day long, but until they say, this or that, that's how it goes over there.
Yeah. Still a very cool thing that you get to do that, man.
It's really symbiotic. Like, we have artists that play Whiskey Jam out of the blue that I'm like, we have to get this guy in and interviewed and on the air. Like, trust me, this is cool. Like, it's bringing new talent into Apple, and I'm able to get talent that we might not have had ever access to ever before playing on Whiskey Jam shows because they come in to do radio. Josiah and the Bonnevilles is artists I love. I never would have, met him DMing on Instagram maybe, but he came to Apple. We got to be buddies. He played our anniversary show last year, like special moment. That kind of stuff is, the back and forth is really cool.
Yeah, I love that. Talking about just how things are different now. Social media is great, right? Like we've got these platforms that everyone's able to put their music out, and you can build this fan base, and it's really changed the industry where, even labels that, aren't going to sign somebody unless you've got X amount of people on TikTok and all this kind of stuff. What kind of advice would you give artists today that, when we were growing up and we didn't have any of that stuff, we'd play thousands of shows, and you would know what to tell your drummer by a look, and all this stuff. So like, things have changed now where people are becoming successful because they build this following. So what advice would you give people today that are breaking into the industry because something blows up on something on socials?
I think just, get as much experience as you can, however you can. And it's hard because, you get there's artists that will become mainstream, household names to a degree after recording some songs in their bedroom. And I mean, it's a testament to the music more than anything else, but in a world where that leads to, touring and experiences that, require a pretty specific skill set and knowledge set, you want to know as much as you can. I don't know. It's tough because you want to say like, hey man, kid that blew up literally overnight, you're going to want to get some hours under your belt. But truth is, they're probably going to be getting them on these stages that they should have had them ready for a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it's a unique thing now because you're seeing these artists who are being thrust into, like Baker Blankenship went from being somebody that nobody knows in a small town in Tennessee to playing like CBS Sunday Morning in a 6-month span. It's never happened before. And so you just kind of have to roll with it. I don't know if there's any even advice for, anybody can give, because it doesn't exist. There's no, there's not enough case studies out there. It is wild to see though. And we're starting to see some of the blowback, the aftermath of those meteoric, unsustainable rises in like an Oliver Anthony situation where he was not expecting this to happen. Yep. He was thrust into it, probably against his will to a degree. And it gets to the spot where, he's being blamed for things that he has no control over. And, he's in the situation that probably never wanted to, like we were talking about earlier. I didn't mean to be this successful. I didn't think it was going to change my life this much. And then you get into this, like, he's had some blow ups recently where he's like going off on the system. It's like, man, I don't know what to say, because it's not necessarily what he asked for. You can't be like, oh, dude, this is what you wanted. It's like, no, it isn't. He'd probably be better off just retreating into a cabin and, spending what he made.
Yeah.
It's wild times. And it is, it's with these artists, it's probably the toughest time ever to be successful, because there is no playbook. They can look back and say, oh man, well, whatever. This is how Priscilla Block did it. This is how, Robin Ottolini blew up from one song online. Is that the playbook? And I'm sure they all have their opinions, the artists do, on how things went for them and what they would do different, or how to approach this weird new territory. I'm just trying to kind of keep, in my world, keep those artists around and keep an eye on them and see what I don't know. It's fun to watch.
It is, yeah. All right, as we kind of wrap up, I want to talk about just like what is a day in life for Ward.
Oh, man.
You've got the Whiskey Jam brand. You've got the Apple Music Country, and all of the things that you juggle. Family, you're a big family man. I love that. Like what is a typical day for you?
It's a pretty good routine, man. If my self-control is good, I'll wake up early, go exercise before the kids get up, make some breakfasts, take some kids to school, get into Nashville, come to the Whiskey Jam office. So I've got 4 kids in different couple different schools, and that kind of grounds me in the morning. This is dad time. It's really important to me to start the day like that. And then you go to Whiskey Jam. It's a ton of communication, man. My kids are always like, what'd you do at work today? I just said, I communicated. It is 1,000 text messages. It is fielding emails. It's, working a little bit of business stuff. Also the creative side, which is the part that I love, of listening to new music, seeking out new talent, like seeing how we can re-involve people that we've had on shows in the past, what we can do to keep it growing and going. I do that till about 2 in the afternoon, and then I head over to Apple and have a live show from 3 to 5. So we're live on the air. It was pre-recorded for a little while during the when we were at a distance, which stunk, man, because you're like, you can tell when it's canned and when you were reacting to things, trying to put current events in your show. It's like, who knows what's going to have happened in this story by tomorrow. So I love the real time live, like, hey, watching the sentencing, the Morgan Wallen hearing and reporting on it live to a degree. I like that a lot. I can say as up to the minute, and with the world of social media, things are constantly, you're constantly fed. So it's a cool, I like the dynamic there, like we are live, we are on air. And man, I swear every afternoon when it goes, 3, 2, 1, you're on, I feel better. I have a real sense of satisfaction and fulfillment and connection. And, it's as much therapy for me as anything I've ever done. It's wonderful. And it's probably just because you're getting to share this great music. It's, a really lucky gig. And I feel like we're doing great work. So we do that till about 5. And on a whiskey jam night, I will typically go have dinner with my dad. And then come back downtown and host the show till 11, get home at midnight, start over again. On the nights off, like the non-whiskey jam nights, I'm a pretty family guy. Cook dinner, put the kids to bed, maybe do a little bit of work. I used to work every night until like 10 or 11, and that's just not a sustainable lifestyle. You need to watch TV sometimes.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Oh, man. How do you decide how much time you spend here? Because you could be here 100 hours a week.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same kind of challenges. You mentioned earlier about how the older that we get, we were hanging out a lot back in the day. I was the bartender, the sound engineer, the booking manager, the cook, all of that. And as we've grown this, it's the same thing. Like I feel very disconnected to the younger writers coming in. I get to know quite a bit of them over time, but before it was just like they would be playing shows because they were friends. We were just all hanging out together.
Yep.
And so it's especially with young kids, it's the balance of what events are going on every single night of the week that I need to go to. I'm spending the day working on the business. And then, is it a show that I need to come to at night here or somewhere else around town? Do I go to Whiskey Jam? Do I, do all these things? And, man, it's tough.
It is tough. And I think the hardest part for us is growing up.
Yeah.
And that's just what happens, man. We can want to be still, I was bartending at Tin Roof for 11 years. It was an amazing time. It got me so many relationships. I credited it with, the establishment of Whiskey Jam as much as anything, because I was knowing these artists as early as possible. And it was a really cool dynamic of I'm at your service, same as you with everything you're doing at Listen Room. Like they didn't view you as, the guy that owns the brand and that has this history. It's like, dude, this is my peer. This is my guy who's in the trenches with me. And man, we can't be that forever. My challenge now is finding that me who's 15 years younger, and like finding you 15 years, 20 years younger. It's a tall order, we're unique people as far as like having personal goals and desires and putting those aside when we realize something else, in this town of people who don't often put aside, those dreams until, they move on to something completely different. We're probably some of the luckiest guys in town to have been able to say, okay, I can get my fill musically by not necessarily strumming. But yeah, as we age and age out, it's letting go of that that's a different challenge.
Yep. Yeah. Well, one day at a time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I don't think I learn anything until it's until I'm looking back on it from a year or more. It's like, oh, okay, I learned that then.
Yeah. In
the moment right now, I'm like, I have no clue. I'll have to figure out what I was learning right now when I look back in a few years. But I hope we figure out this season of growth and change. But man, the family makes it easy because it's just your human being nature, makes those decisions a lot easier to make.
Yeah.
I would do anything, for them. Obviously there's no it's not a hard decision when it's like, I could go bartend again on the nights when I'm not doing Whiskey Jam, but there's no world that I do that over, gymnastics and baseball games.
Yeah. It's good that you're in a different spot too for me, because I am so happy that I'm way past those like crazy drinking days that I used to be in. And I think I probably lost count of how many Jaeger bombs you would slide across the bar to me at Tin Roof. I mean, that was those were some nuts times, dude.
It's a part of the culture, obviously, in the Tin Roof where I was bartending, just, I mean, ingrained in the culture. And on the Whiskey Jam, those early days, wild. Like we posted a video on Instagram a couple weeks ago of Chris Stapleton singing at Winners, and Josh was singing on one side and I was singing on the other. And dude, until I saw that video a couple of years ago, I had no idea that I sang with Chris Stapleton. It was that deep into the Fireball and Red Bull vodka days. I was like, wow, thanks YouTube for restoring my memory that had been lost. I remember Stapleton playing. I have some cool pictures of it, but I didn't know we sang Steve Miller Band together. Again, unsustainable. What's crazy though is like we still, I'm still stirring that pot. I'm still trying to cultivate hey dude, it's Monday night. Treat it like a Friday. Get crazy. Call in sick tomorrow. And not participating.
Just a little something different in your cup. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a little teaser. I don't know. It's, I do appreciate that there's a trend these days towards not drinking as much, and kids are drinking less and doing other things instead. Makes it easier than trying to out drink everybody every show like we did in the early days.
Yeah.
But that's why I need the kid. That's why I need the new kid.
Yeah. Yep.
With better, younger organs.
Speaking of new, who are you looking at right now?
Oh man. My favorite artists that have played this year, Preston Cooper was just a really magic moment at Whiskey Jam. I had, seen him online. A friend of mine, this is hilarious. My friend, has a clothing company, Vineyard Vines, the kind of, I don't want to say preppy, but it's probably known as just nice clothing line. He loves music more than anything. He loves music more than me. And so he sends us suggestions quite a bit. Like he sent me Oliver Anthony 2 days before Oliver Anthony blew up to the world.
Really?
Oh yeah. And I was like, who's this guy? And he sent me Preston Cooper, and I'm like, oh man, that's something special. And so I reached out, got him on the stage, and man, it was one of those moments. I was laughing, looking around at the crowd. I was giddy. I was just like, does anybody realize what's happening? This is truly amazing. And I was so excited because we have great artists play all the time, but you knew you were watching the start of something super, super cool. Bud Preston, I think is a bunch of cool stuff's going to happen with him. Cassius Culpepper, absolutely incredible voice. I think, he's one of those, when the world hears it, I'm just like, I play it so much on my show, and we have him on as many events as we can. It's just the typical tipping point kind of thing. It's like, if he continues to be able to sing and people continue to be able to hear him, there will be a moment where he is just as big as anything in the world. That's exciting because we're watching when's it gonna tip?
Yeah.
Golly, this is a kid that I hadn't had on Whiskey Jam. Ty Myers is a 17-year-old out of Texas that I actively listen to his music, which is so rare. You probably the same way. It's when you find an artist that you're like, I want to purchase a CD and I want to go to a concert. There are very few of those. I think it's good because it keeps it sacred, keeps it special. It doesn't discount any of the music that these thousands of other artists that we've seen are making, but it's still, we can still have our button pushed by a good song, by a good singer. And yeah, Ty Myers is freaking great, man. It's wild when you see a 17-year-old doing things that well, touring, writing, singing, playing, and think dude, in 7 years, this guy's going to be a freak.
Yeah.
Like by the time he's the normal age that artists emerge, it's gonna be wild.
Yeah.
So hope he makes it.
Yeah. Well, everybody has to just keep tuning into Country Riser and everything else.
Yeah.
Great way to find your new big star.
We're so lucky at Whiskey Jam and with Country Risers too, over the years, like, hey, the track record speaks for itself. It's not my fault. It's these artists' fault. They continue to go on and do these things year after year that are universally just impressive. And we continue to have artists that first time they play their Zach Top, last time they play their Zach Top,
Yeah.
These moments happen, same as it is on this stage, man. Just like we do our thing, we keep our routine going, and it just kind of happens naturally. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, dude, thanks for hanging out.
It's great.
Sharing a little bit of your story, man. It's just, I've been so pumped for this one.
Good. Well, I appreciate you having me, man. It's, we could talk for many hours about stories and, dreams and missed opportunities and stuff like that. But, it's a good start.
Yep.
Well, congrats on 100. That's amazing.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Did you ever see it getting to where you have 100 in the bank?
No, man, no. So when we started this, it was, when did Every Little Thing come out? Like 2009? Was it that long ago? I don't remember.
What song?
Carly Pierce, Every Little Thing.
Oh, yeah.
We started back then. It wasn't that long ago.
Okay.
Maybe. That had to be like 13.
Yeah,
maybe,
I think
something
so.
like that. And it was like this passion project. And Carly was my first one. And it just so happened, like when we recorded, it was a week after she released Every Little Thing.
Oh, cool.
And, but back then we did, 7 or 8 of them, and big cameras and expensive and all of this. And I was like, man, this is a passion project. This isn't going to work. And then, 100 episodes ago, we decided, you know what? Hey, we've got Logic Pro on the laptop. Let's just have fun with this and do it. And man, I never would have thought that 2 years into this thing, we'd still be doing this every week. But it's been such a blast, and it's so fun to sit down, like even guys like you that I've known for 20 years that I like there were bits and pieces of your story today that I had never heard before. And it, just, I love meeting new people, that I don't know anything about them. And then, just sitting down and having these conversations with.
Oh, dude, that's been one of the coolest parts about Apple is I have artists that have played Whiskey Jam a half dozen times that we've seen each other and been around each other a bunch, and I've never talked to them. Within too much degree of substance. And so you get them in for an hour-long interview. It's like, oh, this is great. I have a friend now.
Yeah.
Not just an acquaintance.
Yeah, definitely. Well, last question, always end with this. If you can go back to 8-year-old Ward, what advice would you give yourself today?
Man, I think just like stay focused. In school, focusing was so hard because I thought, I wanted to be doing anything else. And grade school is a different beast, but like especially by high school and college, it was just like, why are you doing this? And if I had gone and done the things that I thought I wanted to do at the time, it would have been too soon. I would have been ready. And honestly, as your brain is still baking as a adolescent and into young adult, I wouldn't have been ready for any of the Nashville stuff if I hadn't just kind of ridden out that time. And who knows, probably could have gone to school for a couple more years and firmed up the mold a little bit more. But it's tough when you're young and want to get out and do everything.
Yeah.
Just be patient, stay focused, and then kind of enjoy your freedom later. And man, it'd be funny. I wonder what I would say looking back on what I just said when I'm 60.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. We'll have to pull it out of the archives.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, this is awesome, dude.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. I love you, dude. I'm so proud of you. You're crushing it. I can't wait to celebrate 20 years at Whiskey Jam
in
a few years. And
golly.
Yeah.
Before we know it.
Yeah. So keep rocking.
All right, dude.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been another episode of Stories Behind the Songs. You've been listening to Ward Guenther. Check out the liner notes. We'll put links on how you can follow Whiskey Jam and find all kinds of great things about him. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify if you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you click that notification button so you can keep notified when new episodes come out. We release brand new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us on YouTube at Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to send us a comment letting us know what you thought of the episodes. We love getting your feedback, and share this with your friends. The more we grow, the more that we can keep doing this. It's our mission to bring you all of these great stories behind the songs from some of Nashville's most iconic artists and songwriters, publishers, producers, everyone in between, and a lot of my great friends. We love what we do, and we love sharing their stories with you. We appreciate all of the continued support. Thanks also to all of our sponsors, and we will see you all next week.